Another example that you hear in B.B. King's early recording are these slides that he does in the first position blues box. In song 3 O'Clock Blues, he does a little riff like this in the intro and then later in the solo. So what I'm going to do is slide on up to the 11th fret on the second string. So we've done that lick before, we're still in B flat. Really I'm sliding from the 9th to the 11th fret. And then back up into my blues box. So that is another thing you could do, the slide. And add the hammer on pull off, the bends, the bass notes. And we'll get into some of those bass note runs here in just a second. So we've got bends, we've got these hammer on pull off, and we've got a slide. So we've got some little tricks, whatever you want to call them, techniques that you can throw in to make the blues box playing a lot more interesting. Another thing that you'll hear on a lot of the early B.B. King songs is riffs or licks that he does starting on the bass notes and then going into the treble notes. Now I showed you once before where he might do a lick on the treble note, then go to the bass note. But you can also start off a lick from the bass notes, kind of in reverse. Climbing down or climbing up, whatever you want to say. So I can start from the 8th fret of the 5th string, and then go 6, 8 on the 4th string, and then 6 on the 3rd string. And then here's another note that I should have mentioned before. The 7th fret of the 3rd string, that is the major 3rd in that B flat scale. He uses that one all the time. So that whole riff, I'm going to climb on the bass note, and then into our standard blues box riffs, 6th fret, 9th fret on the 2nd string, 6th fret of the 1st string, and things we've already done. So the bass note, climb all the way back to where he started from. That's something you hear on a lot of the early BB stuff. Every now and then on the bass notes he'll do these little licks that are kind of cool. I can't remember the name of the song, 10 Long Years or one of those slow songs. He does something like this, where he does this half step. And that, if I'm playing in B flat, I'm going from the 7th to the 8th fret on the 3rd string, 4th string. So that's another little gadget, going from the bass notes to the treble notes to the bass notes. That's something that I hear in a lot of the early BB stuff. Continuing on, another idea out of that first position blues box, one of my favorite parts of BB's playing in general are these little fill riffs that he'll throw in to his songs. I call them mini riffs. That's just my name for them, so I know what I'm talking about. But let me show you some examples. Sometimes he'll sing a verse, and then in between the verses he'll throw in these little mini licks. Nothing complicated, but just real quick and to the point. So one of my favorites is something that goes like this. That's a mini riff. What I'm doing is dragging again with my first finger on the 6th fret of the 1st and 2nd string, and I'm dragging my pick, just dragging it over the 2nd to 1st string. Then I'm going to the 7th or 8th fret of the 2nd string, and then from the 6th to the 7th frets of the 3rd string. That's a really cool little riff, and he'll do some variations of that. So he might do something like this. This time I'm going from the first fret, or the first string 6th fret, again to the 2nd string 8th fret, to the 6th fret of the 3rd string, to the 8th fret of the 4th string. Sometimes he'll just do this little choppy lick at the end of a phrase, or even as a fill, so something like this. And that is just the first part of that, the very first thing that I showed you. Slight bend, and then just drag the pick down on the 2nd and 1st strings. That's a cool idea. And a couple others. Another one he'll do is something like this. Just that lick that we learned at the beginning, but instead of doing that, we're going to do the hammer-on pull-off with the pinky, with the first finger anchored on the 6th fret and the pinky on the 9th fret. He'll just do these little fills like that. Or stuff like that. Lots of different variations, but I call those mini licks. My favorite one is this one. I'll show you some variations with that here in a little bit. So these are all B.B. King ideas out of the first position blues box, his earliest recordings. Another one that I like a lot are these hops he does. These are T-Bone Walker type hops, where he'll do something like this. And what I'm doing here is I've got the same basic finger position as with the first T-Bone Walker lick I showed you. First finger on the 6th fret of the 2nd string. My 2nd and 3rd fingers on the 7th and 8th frets of the 3rd string. Some guys will bend it just like that, but I think on the early B.B. King stuff, just like with T-Bone Walker, the guitars that they had with the heavy strings, it was easier, or maybe this was the only way they could do it, to slide up. So I'm going to slide from the 8th fret of the 3rd string to the 10th fret. And then get the 2nd fret, or the 2nd string 6th fret. So like this. That's more of a T-bone type thing. BB. Something like that. That's another cool lick. There's many, many more. To finish up here with the first position blues box, I'm going to show you some double stops. And B.B. King, in his early recordings that I've listened to quite a bit, used two basic double stops. One, the most common one, is something like this. And this is all centered on a double stop with my first finger barring the 2nd and 3rd strings at the 6th fret. And then I'm going to hammer on my 2nd finger on the 7th fret of the 3rd string. But I'm going to pick both the 2nd and 3rd strings. Double stop. Then I'm going to flatten my ring finger on the 8th fret of the 2nd and 3rd strings. If you've watched my other lessons when we did the Sonny Boy Williamson and Little Walter guitar parts, he had a riff like this. It's basically the same notes, but just played a little differently. So BB, you might hear something like this. And he's wrapping up a verse. Or sometimes when we get into introductions, I'll show you how he used that lick as an introduction. Sometimes he'll just do it like this. He'll just throw in that. Or you can also play it like that, sliding in with two fingers. My first finger on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, 2nd finger on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, and then slide them up into that. That, same thing. Get a little different sound out of it. And then another signature B.B. King lick. You hear this in songs like Woke Up This Morning and also Every Day I Have the Blues. And that intro, I'll show you the whole thing when I do the introduction. That's a common double stop, where T-Bone Walker played it with as a chord, like a diminished chord shape. If you listen to the B.B. King recordings, it sounds like he's just doing it with the 2 fingers. My first finger is anchored again on the 6th fret of the 1st and 2nd strings, since I'm playing in B flat. My pinky is on the 9th fret of the 1st string, and my ring finger is on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. And I can control that. And do all that stuff. Now before I quit, I almost left out maybe the most signature of all B.B. King signature licks, which is the vibrato. I'll show you more of this when we get onto the second blues box. But in the first position blues box, you might hear him do something like this. And to get that sound without a whammy bar, B.B. King would just do it by shaking his hand, holding the note, but then shaking his wrist. It takes practice to get that touch to do that. You can also do it with the bends. When you bend up, try to hold the bend and shake your wrist at the same time, your fingers. No one showed me how to do that. I just listened and experimented and tried to figure it out. Mess around with it, and if you want to learn how to play that, technically I'm sure there's somebody else on YouTube who'll show you. But the idea is that you can do it on any note. You're shaking your wrist. And that's one of the key elements in the B.B. King sound, are those vibrato notes. Now he's only playing one note, but with the vibrato it sounds so soulful, so full and rich. You don't want to overdo it. That sounds kind of ridiculous, but if you put that vibrato in just the right spots, it'll make your solos, fills, whatever sound really cool. There are some other riffs and stuff that I could show you out of the first position blues box, but that's quite a bit, and I'll come back, and at the end I'll do a lesson where I just kind of go through everything that I forgot. I hope this is helpful. If you want to hear these riffs, listen to the early B.B. King stuff, for Sun Records even, the stuff he did with Sam Phillips. I think his first recordings were on Imperial. I don't remember my history there. But before he moved to ABC, I think it was ABC that he recorded a lot of his stuff in the 60s. And you'll hear him playing more of a T-Bone Walker style, but yet he makes it his own. He does it his own way, which makes it unique and special. If you have any questions, comments, constructive criticism, feel free to contact me, either on this site or through email. I'd be glad to try to help you out or answer any questions that you might have. I'll see you again soon with the second lesson of my series on B.B. King.